At 2:13 in the morning, you decide to rebuild your entire life. You picture the business, the body, the money, and the freedom. For a few minutes, your future feels almost close enough to touch. You set an alarm, close your eyes, and make yourself a promise. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, everything finally begins. Then tomorrow arrives. The alarm rings and the future suddenly feels very far away. You press snooze, not because the dream disappeared, but because beginning it now feels strangely unbearable. 9 minutes later, you press it again. This is the private contradiction nobody around you fully understands. You do not want an ordinary life. You may want more than almost everyone you know, but wanting more has not made you move more. Sometimes it seems to have done the opposite. So you use the simplest word available, lazy. Other people use it too, sometimes jokingly, sometimes with disappointment. Eventually, the word stops describing your behavior. It becomes your identity. But there is a problem with that explanation. Truly indifferent people rarely suffer because they are not achieving enough. They do not spend Sunday evening mourning an imaginary better life. They do not build empires in their heads before falling asleep. And they do not hate themselves for standing still. You are not empty of desire. You may be carrying so much desire that movement feels dangerous. That sounds like an excuse. But psychology suggests something more uncomfortable. Your ambition may be helping to keep you frozen. In 1908, two psychologists placed mice inside a simple wooden box. Their names were Robert Yerkes and John Dodson. They wanted to know how pressure changed learning. Too little stimulation produced weak performance. A moderate amount improved it. But when the pressure became too intense, performance collapsed again. The relationship looked less like a staircase than an upside-down U. Later, this became known as the Yerkes-Dodson law. The details are more complicated than one perfect curve, but the central warning survives. Pressure can energize you. Too much pressure can shut you down. Now look at what an ambitious mind does to an ordinary task. Writing one page is no longer writing one page. It becomes a referendum on whether you could ever become a writer. Completing one workout is no longer completing one workout. It becomes proof of whether you possess discipline. Sending one application becomes a verdict on your entire career. A small action begins carrying the weight of your whole identity. And the nervous system does not call that ambition, it calls it danger. This is why you can work hard on tasks that mean little, then become mysteriously exhausted near the work that matters most. Your energy did not disappear randomly, it disappeared precisely where your identity entered the room. You might call this procrastination. But procrastination is not always a problem of time management. Often it is a problem of emotion management. You avoid the task to escape the feeling attached to it, and for a moment, the escape works. You open a short video instead of opening the document. The tension falls almost immediately. Your brain notices what happened. Task created discomfort. Avoidance removed discomfort. That relief is a reward. Psychologists call this negative reinforcement. Negative does not mean bad. It means something unpleasant was removed. And any behavior that reliably removes pain becomes easier to repeat. So avoidance quietly trains itself. The next day, the task feels even heavier, not because the task changed, because your brain has learned where relief lives. This creates a cycle that can last for years. Ambition creates pressure, pressure creates avoidance, avoidance creates temporary relief, relief creates guilt. And guilt returns as even more pressure. The loop tightens every time you call yourself lazy. This explains why harsh self-criticism often fails to create discipline. You think shame will push you forward, but shame makes the task more emotionally expensive, and expensive emotions produce stronger avoidance. Your inner drill sergeant may be feeding the behavior it attacks. But this is only the first layer, because avoidance does more than protect you from discomfort. It can protect something far more valuable, your imagined potential. And that is where ambition becomes truly deceptive. As long as you have not seriously tried, your potential remains unlimited. You might be an extraordinary writer. You might build a company worth millions. You might have elite discipline hidden somewhere inside you. Nothing has disproved these possibilities yet. But the moment you act, imagination must meet evidence. The first page may be clumsy. The first product may attract no customers. The first workout may reveal how weak you currently are. Reality places a limit where fantasy offered infinity. For an ambitious person, that limit can feel humiliating, so the mind invents a clever bargain. Do not give your full effort. Then failure will never reveal your full ability. Psychologists call this self-handicapping. You delay until there is not enough time. You prepare halfway. You begin 5 projects and finish none. You wait for motivation that never arrives. Then, if you fail, you keep an escape hatch. You can say the deadline was impossible. You can say you were tired. You can say you never truly committed. The result hurts, but your imagined potential survives. You failed, but the fantasy did not. This is why some ambitious people become addicted to preparation. They redesign the plan. They buy another course. They research the perfect morning routine. Planning produces the feeling of progress without its risk. In fantasy, you never begin as a beginner. You skip the awkward videos nobody watches. You skip the business that earns $12. You skip the body that changes too slowly to notice. Your mind edits out the entire middle. It shows you the desire and then the reward. No boredom, no confusion, no visible incompetence. Then reality asks you to live every frame the fantasy deleted. That is where many ambitious people stop. Not at the dream, at the humiliation of being new. Perfectionism makes this worse. Perfectionism often looks like unusually high standards, but underneath, it can be an intolerance of imperfection, and every beginning is imperfect by definition. So perfectionism can prevent the practice required for excellence. You refuse to create bad work. Therefore, you create no work. Without bad work, there is no feedback. Without feedback, there is no improvement. The standard designed to guarantee greatness guarantees paralysis instead. This can create a strange public image. You speak intelligently about everything you could build. You may understand strategy better than people already taking action, but knowledge gradually becomes a substitute for exposure. You master the map to avoid entering the territory, and there is an entire industry waiting for this version of you. It sells planners, systems, courses, supplements, and morning rituals. Each product offers a seductive promise. You do not need to tolerate the messy process, you only need the missing secret. So you consume advice instead of producing evidence. Advice feels productive because it speaks the language of ambition. It stimulates possibility without requiring vulnerability. You receive a small emotional payment immediately. For 20 minutes, you feel like the person you intend to become. Then the video ends. The room is unchanged. The work remains untouched. And now you need another dose of possibility. The dream becomes content you consume instead of a life you construct. Digital platforms did not invent this weakness, but they learned how to monetize it. Your real project offers delayed, uncertain rewards. A feed offers novelty within seconds. One requires friction. The other removes it. This is not proof that technology destroyed your attention span. It means your environment repeatedly rewards the easiest escape. Your ambition then supplies the pain you need to escape from. The industry supplies the escape, and you blame your character for completing the transaction. This is why waiting for motivation rarely solves the problem. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings change with sleep, stress, hormones, context, and recent rewards. A system dependent on feeling ready is designed to be inconsistent. Ambitious people often make that system even more fragile. They create routines built for their most energized self. Wake at 5, exercise, meditate, read, build, never hesitate. The routine works for 3 days. Then one bad night destroys the entire structure. Because the system had no version for low energy, the ambitious mind treats reduced effort as moral failure. If you cannot do the full workout, you do nothing. If you cannot write 2,000 words, you write 0. If the day cannot be perfect, you surrender the entire day. This is not laziness. It is all or nothing thinking wearing ambition's clothes. The cure is not a more inspiring goal. You already possess enough inspiration to frighten yourself. You need a form of action small enough to feel emotionally safe. Not impressive, not transformative, safe. Because repetition begins where threat becomes tolerable. Imagine your goal is to write a book. Your ambitious mind immediately sees 80,000 words. That number contains months of uncertainty and possible rejection. So do not ask your brain to write a book. Ask it to open the document and write one honest sentence. The sentence is not valuable because it is impressive. It is valuable because it changes the evidence. Yesterday, you were someone who only imagined writing. Today, you are someone who produced a sentence. Identity changes through evidence, not declarations. This is less exciting than reinventing your life at 2:13 a.m. That is precisely why it works. Excitement creates a temporary version of you. Evidence creates a believable version, and believable identities require less force to maintain. The second change is to separate performance from worth. A failed project is information about a project. It is not a laboratory test of your value as a human being. When every result becomes personal, feedback becomes unbearable. When results become data, feedback becomes useful. The third change is to measure starts, not fantasies. How many times did you begin before feeling ready? How often did you return after missing a day? How quickly did you recover from an imperfect week? Consistency is not never falling off. It is reducing the time you spend away. One missed day is an event. The story you attach to it can become an identity. Do not turn a broken streak into a character diagnosis. Return before the shame has time to build a home. There is still a price, and no system can remove it. You must surrender the fantasy of being secretly exceptional, not because you are ordinary, because exceptionality cannot remain a private theory forever. At some point, it must become visible work. Visible work can be judged, it can be ignored. It can reveal that you are years behind your taste. That gap is painful, but it is not evidence to stop. It is the exact distance practice must cross. Every skilled person once produced work beneath their own standards. They did not escape embarrassment. They survived enough of it to improve. Your goal is not to become fearless before acting. It is to make fear small enough to carry. This may mean working for 10 minutes. Sending the imperfect application, publishing while knowing you could make it better, letting reality correct you instead of imagination protecting you. The first action will feel smaller than your ambition. Let it be smaller. A seed does not resemble the tree it can become. A first sentence does not resemble a finished book. A first customer does not resemble a company. But the smaller thing contains something fantasy never can: reality. Once you have reality, you can measure it. You can learn from it. You can return tomorrow and add another piece. Eventually, the evidence becomes harder to deny than the old label. Maybe you were never a lazy person with impossible dreams. Maybe your dreams became so important that each step felt like judgment. Maybe avoidance was not proof that you did not care. Maybe it was what happened because you cared without feeling safe. And safety does not have to arrive before you begin. You can create it by making the beginning smaller. One sentence, one application, one imperfect attempt that your imaginary self would consider embarrassing. That attempt is not beneath your ambition. It is the first thing that has ever made your ambition real. You do not need to destroy the ambitious person inside you. You need to stop letting that person design every first step. Let ambition choose the direction. Let humility choose the distance you walk today. Tonight, your mind may offer you another perfect future. Do not argue with it. Do not promise to become a different person tomorrow. Choose one action small enough to survive the morning. Then leave the evidence where you can see it. Because you were not losing a battle against laziness. You were protecting an identity that had never survived contact with reality. The way out is not more pressure. It is less theater, less judgment, and more evidence. Your potential does not need another promise. It needs a place to begin badly, a place to return without punishment, and enough ordinary days to become something real. You were never required to feel ready. You were only required to make the first step survivable. Ладно, хватит загоняться. Есть только я, байк и завтрашний старт. Все остальное – шум. Иногда нужно просто поверить, открыть газ и довериться тому, кем ты стал за все эти годы.